Hello, homies, and a very warm welcome to Homeopathy Hangout, where today we get to hang out with my really beautiful, gorgeous friend, Elaine Macdonald. Welcome, Elaine.
Hi, Eugenie. Thank you for having me back.
It's lovely to have you on. Any excuse to have a chat with you. And also, Elaine was on episode 24. So this was like, what, 3 years ago now? It's just unbelievable.
The early
And
days. Yeah.
yeah, so you'll have to go and listen back on episode 24 of her journey of how she came to homeopathy. She's been using it for well over a decade. But the thing I wanted to pick her brain on today was she's now a homeopathic student, having just finished her first year at the Center for Homeopathic Education. Just picking your brain a little bit about how the course has been going so far, and we'll just see where the conversation goes.
Fantastic. Yeah, so this is a burning question that seems to be on your page anyway. People are always asking about the different colleges, which I totally understand now being a student. I'll talk about CHAE because that's my experience. There's lots of really good colleges. So I decided to study homeopathy after we did a trituration together, myself, Eugenie, Nicole, and Amy. And Amy's also studying now, which is when you think about it. I've been using homeopathy for 10, 12 years now, I guess. And myself and Eugenia had spoken before about studying, and I don't know why I left it so long.
Plenty of times. All of us have been saying to you, so you're pretty much an honorary homeopath anyway. And Elena's, we've got a couple of mutual homeopathic friends, homeopath friends, who've all said to Elaine, just go and study it. Just become a homeopath. You pretty much want it anyway.
Oh, I love it. So yeah, but everything happens at the right time. I don't think I would have found this course then. And it was actually Nicole, who is a member of Eugenie's team, sent me on the thing about the CHE fast track. And I sort of read it and I was like, oh my God, this sounds amazing. So that's what started me on that. I sent it on to Eugenie, and Eugenie says, like, that actually, yes, I think you should do that one. So I started, it starts off, you have an interview with Marcus Fernandez, who's runs the college, who is such a lovely man, actually. I was lucky to meet him in person there last August. He is full of energy, full of enthusiasm, and very welcoming. And his idea is students, he wants you in studying, but he wants you to be enthusiastic about it and love it. And why do you want to do it? To know before you start why you want to do it. So once you have the initial interview over, I'm doing the fast track course, which is a 2 year fast track course. So it is intense. You're squeezing 4 years into 2 years. So you have to be prepared for that. There is a lot to it. What does happen, there is options just for people who feel a bit nervous or whatever. If you did decide to do the 2 year fast track and found it was too fast. What I've seen this year is some students have dropped into the 4 year course after doing the first year. So they do 2 more years instead of 1 more year just to be able to do it. People have moved from the 4 year course in the second year to the 2 year course. They're really flexible. And from that side of things, actually, I have another friend who deferred. She did her first year and has just deferred for a little while because of things going on and then can come back to it again. So there's a lot of flexibility from that side of things.
That's so nice. And you know, the funny story is that Marcus and I had obviously had a few chin wags and stuff before that. So we'd been in touch with each other, but I didn't know about the 2 year fast track program. And so even though him and I were in communication, you were actually the one that told me about the 2 year fast track program. And then I was like, Marcus, what's this? I didn't know you do this. And then gotten other people onto it since then. So that is actually hilarious because I've said it on the podcast lots of times, but I've been a member of CHE Pro since 2019, way before I really knew anything about Marcus or anything like that at all. So I have always loved the way that they teach. They've just got excellent lecturers. Hey, and so I'm so glad that's where you ended up going. I'm so glad that you told me about their 2 year fast track program.
And the fact is that there is options if it gets too much. That's the other thing, just to know that. Yeah, that's the other thing that really attracted me to this course. And as CHE has amazing lectures. One of my favorites, Hilary Dorian, is there. You've got Colin Griffiths, Marcus himself does some lectures, Dion Tabret, Mike Bridger. Actually, lots of people that Eugenie has interviewed actually are lecturers there. And if you were to listen to their interviews with you, they're all very different. They all actually probably practice differently. Like Dion is very much with organ support or organ remedies. Mike Bridger is very much with remedy mapping. Hilary is just brilliant with everything, but very much women's health, sarcodes, bowel nosodes. So each of them have something different that they're really do specialize in. And from that point of view as well, it makes the content really interesting. So as I go on with homeopathy, like obviously there's a big classical field of homeopathy. There was classical homeopathy, but what CHD is, it actually embraces all forms of homeopathy and brings lecturers in that have different ideas about it. So it gives us everything. We get to see all the different types of ways, methods, methodologies, and just really gives you a really vast knowledge of the whole lot.
I think that's so important with homeopathic training, that you have that classical grounding, but that you're exposed to lots of different things. So you have the roots, but you stay open-minded. I think that's really important. Hey.
And what I would say as well is the fundamentals, I realize now as well. So they really get the fundamentals into you, and they're so important. You need to know the fundamentals before you, like from previous to that, you could go off and do a little course here and something, a little course there. But really, unless you have the fundamentals, everything just builds on that. And that they're really important to learn.
Mm. Do you know what I was just thinking as we're chatting here? I like honesty and integrity is my highest values, along with love for my family. And as we're talking here, I just suddenly thought this is probably going to come across as if we're getting paid to have this conversation. But Marcus doesn't even know that we're having this conversation. Literally, it's the two of us having a conversation about how, because I was saying to Elaine, how's your thinking changed now that you've got the first year homeopathy under your belt versus 10 years of home prescribing? Because there's like lots of short courses out there these days where people are told they can call themselves homeopaths afterwards. So recently, we were in Bali on the 4th to the 6th of September for the Unleashing Homeopathy Conference, which Elaine can tell you about shortly. But we got to meet all these amazing homeopaths in person there. And sorry, I sidetracked there because I couldn't wait to bring Bali in. But basically, we just finally, even though we live in the same city, we don't actually get to see each other that often because we're on like opposite ends of the city. But we actually got to have really good in-person chats in Bali about homeopathy, about how's things changed for you, how's the studying going. And that's why I asked Elaine to come on. So this might sound like it's a promo episode. It's totally not. I'm very happy to interview students from other colleges as well. It's just because Elaine and I are besties and we love talking homeopathy and we're looking for an excuse to hang out. And we just thought we'd get other people in on the conversation. So there's no financial contribution to this. When I do get financial incentives for doing things, I always make sure that I make it really clear on my socials, on the podcast and everywhere else, because that's something I feel very passionate about. So Marcus doesn't even know this episode is happening. I'll surprise him after. But maybe that's something that we can go into. Like, how has your ideas changed about being a home prescriber versus a professional homeopath? Like, what's the journey been like for you?
It's almost like a 360 turnaround. Like even when I went into the course, I actually thought I knew something about homeopathy. And then I started studying and I realized I really didn't. It's such a vast topic. So a lot of things have changed. A lot of things have changed for me since I've started studying it. Actually, what I really enjoyed was the podcast you did. You had a panel about what is a homeopath. And yeah, so a home prescriber for many years. I've used, obviously, I had a homeopath back with my son. That's the other episode. But I used it as my medicine cabinet for 10 years. But it was really first did home prescribing. There's so much more to it. I think I was shocked about how much you can do with homeopathy, how vast it is, and how many different methods there are. So you could go to 10 different homeopaths and come back with completely different prescriptions because they all use different methods, but all the methods seem to work from what I can see. I would say the biggest thing that has come to me from studying homeopathy is the need for homeopaths. As much as we can do as a home prescriber, and I have done lots, I've treated my kids over the years, sore throats, coughs, everything, that's all we've used. But if you have chronic illness, you need to go to a homeopath and you need to, and the other thing actually that's really important is follow-ups. So that first appointment isn't the most important appointment, it's the appointments after. So you go to that first appointment, but there's only so much information the homeopath can, and we need a lot of information. We need everything about you because we're treating you as, you know, your totality, you as an individual, like you're different than every other individual there's around. And that's why everyone's prescription is different. But we're treating you, so we need to find the information. And there's only so much of your life we can get into that first appointment. And then based on what we got in that first appointment, we're prescribing in that first appointment. But it's actually how you come back every other appointment is how things really change. And I've seen this, and most courses do, as part of the training, we do clinicals. So we sit in, and there's a low-cost clinic that CHE have. Us as students must take cases in front of everyone, and we're all blanked out. But it's real life situations. And you really see it's actually over the course, like you have 4 clinicals with this particular patient, and then you can take them off and be your own patient separate from the clinic. But you can see the progression. It's really the progression is mostly from maybe the second and third, or the third to the fourth appointment, as opposed to the first, because each one you're learning more, you're getting a bigger insight, they're becoming more comfortable, you're finding more out. Yeah, I think that that's the biggest for me. I think follow-ups are so important, and having a homeopath long term, maybe seeing them once every year, as you might do a GP, just to keep everything in balance.
And
Lot,
what
lot,
was it like for you taking that first
I
consultation?
haven't
Like,
taken one. I haven't taken one
oh
yet,
yeah, you just you must be
but
close
I do.
though.
But I've watched a lot of. We get access to many hours of it, so I do watch a lot of them because I think that's the biggest learning for me is real life situations and seeing it in practice. So we can learn all the materia medica and all the philosophy and all the methods we want, but actually when you're seeing it in practice, that's actually because each person presents differently. You can't think I'm going to use this method for everyone because it just depends on the person that comes in front of you, what needs to be treated, what method you're going to use. Yeah, there's so much. There's so I can't even explain how much more to it than I was actually a bit flabbergasted. Like after about a year of it, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I even listened to my first podcast. I was thinking, you were so green back then. You really didn't know much.
It's that ignorance is bliss, hey, and that's the part that kind of scares me about people calling themselves homeopaths without proper homeopathic training because they don't know what they don't know.
The other thing actually that surprised me as well is the amount of work that goes into it's not just so obviously the more experienced homeopaths can, but doing that first consult and knowing the remedy you're going to give them straight away, it's not like that. There's hours of work afterwards. There's hours of work of the repertorising, going through the materia medicas, all this stuff. There's a lot more work than that, just that hour and a half you have with the homeopath. They spend so much more time on you. And
So
people, I
much.
think, recognize that because I know people sometimes might give out about the costs or whatever. It's more than your hour and a half. It's at least 3 hours, 3.5 hours, plus getting the remedies together and sending them to you, whatever you're doing. Or, yeah, I think, yeah, it's
Those
huge.
first couple of years for me, I was definitely running at a loss because I would spend minimum 6 hours after
Yeah,
taking a case to work on it, to read through materia medica, to repertorize. I didn't mind because I love learning and I love
how
like
you
it's
learn.
just so, but it's something that I don't know, a lot of people probably aren't prepared with. I would say that first after the second year, so in my third year of consulting after my 4 year, because I did 4 years in New Zealand, it was by the third year I could prescribe on the spot. And not every time, I'd say maybe 60% of the time, 60 to 80% of the time. And then after that, usually prescribe on the spot. But that's the part that you don't get prepared for because you might charge. I don't know, when I started out, I was only charging 90 Australian dollars for a consult, but this was like a decade ago. And I spent 6 hours. So what's that? You end up getting like $5 an hour or something like that.
It is.
Oh, it's
And even when you prescribe in the spot, but that's all going to build a picture for your next appointment and your next
yeah.
appointment. It's actually amazing. Like what is really good, just again to mention the college, in CHE, and I think this is a lot of colleges probably similar, where you have a supervisor, and so we have to take cases ourselves in our second year, or because it's our final year. Because if we're not taking cases while we're studying, how the hell are we going to go out and practice? So our assignments can be as part of our assignments as well. And then we have a supervisor who can oversee the cases, and that's been such a learning experience as well. Like I at the moment I have Dion to Brett, who I really admire as a
oh.
homeopath. But
Mhm.
again, yeah, I'd sit down with a case with him and he's got it. I was like, wow. But it again, it's that knowledge base. He's practicing now 32 years, I think, even might be even more. And just getting that experience, learning how to take a case, learning the information that you need to take out of it. Yeah, and even already seeing some of the results in patients has actually been quite amazing.
I'm so glad you said about that first prescription. Like I always say, that first prescription is really just like throwing a little pebble in the pond. And then we see the ripples that come out of that. And you learn as much from an unsuccessful prescription as you do from a successful one. That first prescription is just for us to see how your vital force responds to the remedy. And then from there, we learn so much. Did we prescribe too high a potency or too low? Should we have given more repetitions or less? And I remember those first few years, and this took me longer to get my head around, maybe 6 years or so, when a client would come in and go, oh, I didn't have any improvement. And I would freak out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, nothing worked. They say no, and there's no change. And then I start reading back. Okay, so we talked about your constipation. How's that going now? Oh, yeah, I'm going every day now. And I'm like, oh, great. Okay. And how's your sleep now? She's, oh, my sleep's great. What do you mean? And I'm like, no, last time you said that it took you an hour to fall asleep. Oh, no, I'm out in 10 minutes. And every single time, without fail, every single time, a client's always had some sort of improvement. You might not have cured their 30 years of arthritis or depression with one single prescription, but there's always a slight improvement. I've never had a follow-up where there hasn't been a slight improvement. So for any students or any new homeopaths listening to this, if a client walks in and they say, there's been no change, take a deep breath and then just go, okay, so what's been happening? And then you just go through every little step every single time. And I always ask about sleep, bowel motions, appetite, mood, what's your energy levels like? And then having things like having something to like a guiding to kind of guide you along also helps. So something that Hilary Dorian does is she'll say out of, 10, what's your energy level like? So we'll do this at the first prescription so that you have something to measure your follow-ups by. And you say, what's your energy like in the morning? And they might say, oh, when I wake up, it's a 2 out of 10. Okay, what's it around lunchtime? Oh, it's about 5 out of 10. What's it in the evening? Oh, it's back to about 2 out of 10. And then at the follow-up, you just ask them again, what's your energy levels like? And if those things have improved, then you can say, last time you said it was a 2 out of 10 when you woke up in the morning. Now it's a 5 out of 10. So we're heading in the right direction because you need to kind of let the client know that you're on the right track. But those follow-ups are so important. I wish there was a way of making people really understand the value of follow-ups and building that relationship with your homeopath.
And that's the other thing that is really lacking in medicine now. You don't, like, where do you go nowadays where you can go in and actually talk about yourself and tell somebody all about yourself for an hour and a half, whatever that first appointment is? In itself, that is really healing because somebody's listening to you. You're not in a waiting room, rush through, whatever, take this, that's, yeah, whatever part. We're learning about you. That element of it too, I just think it's beautiful. Like, I just sort of, I hear people talking because obviously once you start studying, you get into groups and you hear people talking, and sometimes people just walk out of that first appointment feeling so different because somebody actually listened to them and was interested in knowing about them and all these little things they need to know. But it was really, that is part of the healing journey as well. That must be also mentioned as well.
It's beautiful that you get to view so many cases because that, like every homeopath prescribes differently. And I have learned something from so many different homeopaths who I have watched their case taking, like little bits that I've added into the way that I do things. And one of the things, I think it was Julie Andrews, who was one of my lecturers in New Zealand, she did what she called a body scan. So, these are really good for the Nat Mer clients that you really have to, it's like pulling teeth, trying to get information out of them. So then it's like an hour and a half consult and you're 20 minutes in and you've asked, they've said everything that they can possibly say. I always have a list of backup questions that I ask people. And then usually I've gone through that list and I still don't, there's still a half an hour left. Then we do a body scan. So I'll start with their head and I'll say, okay, just throughout your lifetime, has there been any issues with headaches, migraines, hair loss, head injuries, anything like that? And then you just like slowly work your way through the body. And that was that I learned from Julie Andrews. And then this energy thing was something, I'm sure it was Hilary that I learned that from. And then somebody else, possibly also Julie, but at the end of every consult, I always ask, okay, so what is it that you want to get out of today? So like every single aspect of my case taking are little bits that I learned from different homeopaths. And it's just from watching lots of like other homeopaths taking cases that you learn how you would like to do it. And you're lucky that you have access to lots of watching cases because we didn't when I studied. So I made use of something called homeopathicsymposium.com. And I just actually hopped onto their website to see if it's still active because this was like 14 years ago that I used this. But I see it is still up, homeopathicsymposium.com. There's a few cases taken by Dr. Rajan Sankaran on there and a few other homeopaths. And you get about 9 hours per case because it's the video of the case and then the follow-ups as well, but it's over years. So some of those cases are over years and you get to see how the homeopath takes a case. And then once the client leaves, he has a little video explaining why he did what he did. But you actually get that as part of your training because that cost me about 50 whatever US dollars even then per case, but you have that included.
And as well, when the clinicals are, we say whoever takes the case, they take the case and there's an observer who's another student just in case they falter and need someone else to help with questions. And then once the client leaves, then we all come together and discuss the case.
Wow.
And different ways of maybe dealing with it and looking at different remedies. And obviously we have a supervisor who's also steering us. And then the actual student decides on the prescription in the end. And that's actually where I really notice with follow-ups, like, the first appointment is so-so and then the second, but then the rapport starts building. It's amazing how that changes everything and how much more information you get. Because initially, like somebody being asked what they're afraid of or what colors their stool to people just doesn't make sense. And then, but things start to unfold and unfold. And even that first prescription can get things going, or there might be some blockage that needs to be dealt with. Yeah, it's the follow-ups. And to me, they're been the most learning for me as well, watching them.
Mm.
How
And how are you finding like the studying? Because you can read these remedies and then every remedy you read, you feel like that's your remedy. Do you
you
find that as well? Like you see
you
yourself?
become the remedy. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Because some of the lecture, I think it's Tony Hurley, he really goes into the remedy when he's doing his materia medica. Yeah, the studying, I will say it's full on. Like we have a lot of assessments. As much as assessments are difficult, I do find their learning brilliant. What we have now coming up, we have to do a chronic condition with, say, for example, ulcerative colitis, and we have to research that properly through journals and whatever. We have to research what causes it, what populations it affects the most, what is the actual allopathic treatment of it, why the allopathic treatment is that of it, to understand why they treat it that way, understand whatever blood tests or whatever tests are involved, all of that, and then to look at from the homeopathic perspective and what therapeutics may be used in that, and to compare and contrast and why you would use these remedies. It's quite a huge assignment, but one of our lecturers has come with us and explained it bit by bit with 10 parts to it, and how, but there's 4 different things we have to choose from, and I feel there's so much learning in all of them. But as much as it feels like I have a mountain to climb, I know I'm going to get so much knowledge from it, just in general, like that type of stuff. We also got another big project, which is our business plan.
Mm.
But again, you're going to walk out with a business plan with proper market research, SWOT analysis, graphs, whatever. Yeah, so like it's a lot. It's a lot. And trying to learn all the remedies. There's times I go, I'm never going to get here. Like you look up something, I don't even recognize what the abbreviation of this remedy is. Never mind. It's so much learning, but it's so interesting, homeopathy, from that point of view. I think it's one of those topics that you'll never stop learning. And
Never,
I
ever.
there's always something new to
Mm.
learn.
How do you feel about the assignments? Because there's this trend at the moment, which I'm not sure how I feel about it. It can go either way. There's this trend of some homeopathic courses that don't have any assessments that go with them. Now, I understand that in a way because I think some people are better at presenting a portfolio of information rather than sitting a test or having to submit an assignment, I guess. So I can understand where that comes from. But then the other part of me is like, how does the college know whether the student understands this remedy and what it's about and this condition if there's not testing? So I don't know. I'm sitting on the fence about it at the moment. I can see both sides of why it's
I'm
done that
assuming,
way.
gosh, wouldn't it be great to have no assessments? But I do see the learning of it. I think one of our first assignments was in philosophy, and to be honest, I wouldn't have read that stuff and researched that stuff if I hadn't to do an assignment. Okay, so as I said, that chronic disease one, even though it's a huge assignment and makes me a little bit nervous, I can just see the learning. Because the other
Mm.
thing, because homeopathy, because it works, let's just put it that way, because it works, is squashed down by the people up there who think
The
other
powers that
things.
be.
Powers that be, let's say. It's really important for us as homeopaths to be able to research properly and to actually present data that can be backed up. Now, I don't know what other colleges do. I know with CHE, we have a reference list for every assignment we do. At the start, it was like, this is awful. Like, I can't, because, I have to actually back everything I say. I can't, but I'm beginning to understand now. I'm actually beginning to understand how to read journals. And we can't just say things. We need to, if we're going to argue with someone, we need to say, this is why. There is actually so much research out here. There is so much evidence that this works. It mightn't be presented in mainstream media and that, but it's there. So I think that element, not only just the case, the case taking is really important and the clinical setting, we also need to understand all that background stuff and know how to find information to actually back up what we're saying. And even just to learn how to, we say in that chronic case condition, to learn how to actually, from an allopathic point of view, to understand it just as much as a homeopathic view. Because when a patient comes in front of us, we need to know what are actually symptoms of
Mm.
the disease and what are actually maybe symptoms of the medication they're on from the disease. Because there's 2 different things here. So I think, yeah, look, assessments definitely add a whole level of stress to the course, but I actually think they're necessary. Every assessment I've done, I've learned something. They've been quite interactive. What we have, we get an assessment, you can submit it. If you fail, you have another chance to submit it, but we also have learning support. So you could go to learning support about it. They can talk you through what needs to learn. And if we've been told if we need extra support, if it's something we find difficult, or maybe it's not, maybe A&P, I just can't get my head around it or something, they'll offer ways to actually help you improve upon that. Yeah, I think, look, portfolios are great, but I think we need the background knowledge too.
Mm. I
You know,
always think if I was to go to a doctor, I would rather go to the doctor who had assessments that he had to do rather than the doctor who didn't have to do assessments. Like I think I'd rather go to the guy who had his knowledge properly tested before he works on me rather than somebody who didn't have to go through testing. That's just me.
That's to be honest, I could listen to the lectures all day. I love them. I find them really interesting. But when you have to go and do the hard, the hard slog of reading through books and materia medicas and journals, and you end up like going into lots of different websites, researching, listening to videos, like we might do remedy comparisons and that. It actually just forces you to do all that. You could just sit and do very little and just listen to lectures and love it and enjoy it. But there is, it's a bit like being a homeopath. There's the other side of it. It's not just talking to somebody. There's the work you have to do besides that. And you have to be able to understand how to do that and why you're doing that. And I think assessments help you do that.
It does. So maybe it's actually more a matter of having to reframe how we think about assessments, because from those of us who might have PTSD from school, failing assessments and things like that, then when we become adult learners, we have fears and things around that when it comes to tests. So maybe it's just a matter of actually removing that kind of stigma around if you fail a test. And I love how, like, seeing that actually as a learning opportunity rather than, oh, you failed, you're doomed for life, rather than saying, this is just part of the learning process. Okay, this is where you need some support. And that's where you're saying, like, the student help comes in. Because I have all sorts of people on the podcast that I don't necessarily agree with. I've changed my mind about quite a few things since having the podcast. And something that I think maybe a lot of people don't understand about me. I know you do, because you were one of the first people, if not the first person I met when I moved to Perth 8 years ago now. Hey, can you believe it? 8 years. So we've known each other for a while. That I'm always I like asking questions. And sometimes I put my foot in my mouth because not everybody thinks that it's okay to ask questions. Like, I love asking questions, and sometimes the answer is what I expected, sometimes it's not, and sometimes I agree and sometimes I don't. But I feel that we should always be able to ask, we should always be able to discuss things. And sometimes in this day and age, especially, if you just even bring up a topic, you cancelled or shut down immediately, whereas we should be able to talk about things. So this is something, and I also have a bad habit of processing things out loud. I don't know if that's the Aries in me, but I will say things out loud instead of using my inside voice when I think about things. So I'll think about it out loud and then get myself in trouble. Also, this is probably the projector side of me, because since finding out about my human design, apparently this is a thing that projectors do. Like, we see everything that goes on around us, then we distill that information, and then we present it to the public as a way to challenge the status quo to see, can we do things a bit better? So this is just how I'm prefacing this, because the assessment thing is something that's just milling around in my head at the moment. I'm just wondering, do we need assessments to have good homeopaths? Are we creating a barrier to entry for people who might have issues with learning? But then should everyone be able to be a homeopath? Should there become some sort of, you need to have a level of mental acuity to be able to be a homeopath? Or should everyone just be allowed to be a homeopath? Like, these are the types of things without judgment that floats around in my head.
When you say that, like, well, look at the education a doctor needs. Like, we're no different. It's people's health that we're taking, and we're here helping people with their health and their wellness or their mental health, whatever. I do think we need a certain amount of, not everyone can be a homeopath. It's actually could become a very stressful job. Even just doing college where you're trying to manage assessment and manage lectures and manage clinicals and then actually take clients, and you're like, oh my God, are you kidding me? But that's the real life, right? If you're having a busy practice and you're taking all these patients, and some of them have some awful stories, and you have to be yourself and empathetic with them and listen to them all the time, that actually takes a talent and hard work. There is a lot of hard work. So what I would say, if you do need to work hard to be a homeopath, and you need to work hard as a homeopath. So if you're looking to be a homeopath just because it's going to be a nice, stuffy job, it's not. It's a very fulfilling job, and it's really good for expanding your knowledge and your interests, and the community is fabulous. And there's so much good things to it. But if you're just looking for the easy buck or what, it's not.
Mm.
Yeah, there has to be some work there.
Mm. The personal development that comes along with studying to be a homeopath is pretty amazing. Hey, I don't think you really get prepared for all the personal
Oh,
development that goes in.
no, no, it's yeah, no, it's definitely been, I've definitely had a very eye-opening experience. But in a good way. Look, it's definitely challenging me. I'm not going to say it's easy.
Mm.
I'm still family and still work and whatever. It's definitely a challenge, but a good challenge. I feel if you asked me a week before an assessment's due in, maybe not. Like it just depends. Well, actually, no, I'm due on next Wednesday. But again, I think that's life. We have to be able to understand, learn how to juggle. And there's things that's going to be important to get done quicker than other things in a practice as well. So it's actually learning how to manage your time and manage assessments or manage whatever else you need to manage. Yeah, as much as I hate them, I do actually think assessments are a good thing.
That was great when you look back on them. We were forced to do a research paper in my 4 years, and I'm actually at the time I was not happy about it, but it was really glad. I'm so grateful that now if I go on PubMed, I'm not intimidated by the research articles on there, actually knowing how to dissect them and how to read things. And it is a really good skill to have.
Yes, I think
Mm.
yeah, I think at this day and age, because like homeopathy has grown, which is fabulous, but the more it grows, the more it's going to be squashed down, and they're going to try and dissect it. So we need to be able to argue our knowledge and where it's come from. I didn't even know. I've been like a home prescriber. I didn't even know the history of it. Like so, when I started learning, like all like it was started by doctors. Again, it was squashed down by doctors, and then all the doctors tried to discredit it and send certain people on to discredit the homeopath and then got cured and became a homeopath and then couldn't join the medical associations anymore. It's very interesting history too, but it is actually started by doctors. Most of them were male. And just the whole journey of it really fascinated me. Yeah, it's not just, I don't know what I thought, I don't know where I thought it came from, but it's got a very rich history and a very grounded history. It's not just this smooth science or anything, there's a whole art to it. Yeah.
There's such a deeper appreciation of it when you get to learn all the history and the principles of it all. And yeah, I think you just appreciate it on a different level. And I think that's probably why I become a bit more feisty when people do a short course and then call themselves a homeopath, because it's such a slap in the face. I'm like, there's so much more to it. There's such a deeper appreciation. But I actually also understand like the overall intention of getting homeopathy out to the masses. And luckily, it is a safe medicine, so I do believe in my heart that probably more good will come out of it than bad. But it's going to be an interesting journey, Elaine. We need to
It
go
is.
get our bags of popcorn and sit back and see how this goes. I mean,
I have to say, I think so. The Unleashing Homeopathy conference that I was had the opportunity to attend with Eugenie ran with Marcus, Sarah, and Ren was absolutely amazing. So again, the community is amazing, but a number of people came together from all over the world, from students like myself to quite recent graduates to very, very experienced homeopaths. And we experienced such healing at this conference. There was remedies given out over sound bowls. There was everyone that left us were
spontaneous triturations that didn't end
was
up.
just amazing.
It was
But it
awesome.
was, everyone left different, like so different things that came out of it. Even you, the whole when
Oh,
you
yeah.
you're in Australia, I said that's come from the conference. I'm
Mm.
seeing different things, different people. Like we're in contact with people that we met in the conference now in little groups, which is lovely. But yeah, everyone that came out changed. So again, it's not just for the people out there. So all these people, some of them, as I say, homeopaths for many years were changed by that conference. And the power of the remedies, even for people who have been working in the area for so long, can still have such profound changes, is just amazing.
Yeah, to hear Hilary Dorian and Declan Hammond, both who've been practicing for 40 plus years, say that it's the best conference they've ever been to, I'm like, my job here's done.
Yeah. I was sitting
I
beside
was
Hillary
so
and
happy.
Declan was doing one of the remedies, and then after she was like wiping the tears away. She said, "I never cry." I was like, "Oh my God, that was really strong." Yeah, it's
It's
just
like
this.
me too. I am wildly uncomfortable crying in public. And I was like bawling the whole bloody 3 days. I'm like, this is not like anybody who knows me would not know. That's actually, I'm very wildly uncomfortable with that. But so much with the cacao ceremony that we had, so much stuff of my mum came up and like things that I thought I just dismissed just carried on with my life. And with the conference, it just brought all of that up for just really deep healing and just being with like-minded people. It's so healing for homeopaths to be with other homeopaths. I think we're each other's simillimum.
Healing for healers.
Yes, definitely.
And the homeopaths take on a lot of people's stories and forget their own sometimes. Just to see the effects of homeopathy on all those people within that space, it actually made me even more interested in the whole topic. It's so far outreaching. Like there's so much potential. There really is. And again, like I, as a student, I remember the first day I met Marcus, who runs the CHE, and he just treated me like another person. You know, you kind of medical student, you're there. Like there was nothing like that. Hillary, yeah, she's just a lady. She's just treats everyone equally. Like there's that
Yeah,
beautiful
she
of it.
does.
And then all the different ways people practice, and then you start, and then there's like Samina that does the Gambia project. If you haven't listened to that podcast with Eugenie, that woman is so inspirational. Yeah, there's so much to it. And how she talks about it in Africa, we don't have all these obstacles to cure, like where it's just that simple life and death situation, how powerful homeopathy is. We've created such trivia around us sometimes in Western societies. We don't really understand what it is to suffer.
And how long have I been trying to get Nicole on the podcast? It must be like
That
2 years.
that
Yeah.
happened at the conference as
Yeah.
well.
And after the conference. So I feel like that's also, like Nicole was unleashed. I think we were all unleashed.
Yes,
I,
no, we had a group meeting with a few of the ladies we met over there, or some of the homeopaths, really gorgeous girls. We just spent an hour talking about how we all felt really changed
Mhm.
when we left the
Mhm.
conference, which we did. It was just hard to explain. I was saying to some of my friends, I'm a different person now. I can't really explain it, but I'm different. And I can see it in some of the stuff I'm doing as well. I have changed. I have changed. Yeah, so I mean, if a 3-day conference can do that, it just again shows you the power of the remedies, of talking about the remedies, or being in that sort of healing circle. It's back to again being around like-minded people, or being around people who actually care. And we're missing that a bit in life these days. We need
Mhm.
that sort of that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I haven't said it on the podcast yet, so you've heard it here first. But a week after coming back from Bali, I was like, just had this sudden realization. It just came out of nowhere. It was a funny story because it was a Saturday, the Saturday after the conference. And I was on the phone with John Gamble and Nima Hermiston saying, I want to organize a conference in Australia in August. And, if you guys can help me and da da da. And I came off that phone call, and a couple of hours later, I don't know where it came from. It just like something dawned on me that I have to go travel Australia now because my Josh is 13 and Tuli is about to turn 10. And I just suddenly realized I can't be organizing a conference. I need to go and travel with my kids and my husband because Josh, we just had the caravan delivered last week. Josh only just fits in the bunker bed. There's a good chance by the time we come home, he's not going to fit in it anymore. But I think that was also Bali, like just the kind of,
That's what I said.
I have to say, I also started seeing a really amazing homeopath just a little while before Bali. So I think it's a combination of the remedies she gave me and Bali. But I suddenly realized, no, I'm not going to organize a conference for other people in Australia. It's going to be so stressful. I am going to go with my family and go travel around Australia. So I'm still going to be doing consults online around Australia. And I'm going to be, for any of our homies in Australia listening to this, I'm going to be stopping in towns along the way, towns and cities, then rent a consulting room in that town and then do consults for the day, do talks and do illegal scans and just meet the other homies on the other side of Australia that I've been doing consults for years and never met in person. Yeah, that was definitely Bali, definitely played a role in that.
Brilliant. That would be amazing, actually. Yeah, just to be like the little bus going around Australia, like bringing homeopathy everywhere.
Yeah, EK around Oz, I'm calling it.
Love it.
Elaine, we can chat for hours and hours, but I wonder, because you, as part of your business training with CHE, has now got your website up and going, right? So do you want to give us the URL and do you want to tell us when you're going to be taking on cases as a student practitioner and where people can get a hold of you? And yeah, tell us all the good bits.
My website's elainemac.com. It covers Elaine Mac homeopathy and Elaine Mac movement because I still do gyrotonic. I have been taking cases for a while now because we're actually encouraged to learn while we're learning, but under the supervision of the supervisor. So at the moment I go through each of my cases through Dion to Brett. So you actually get two homeopaths and I probably will take on a second supervisor just for the workload. But yeah, so anyone can contact me for cases. Yeah, they're done through the proper channels. And yeah.
That's amazing. Have you done all online so far or in person?
No, I've done both in line,
Okay.
online and in person. Yeah, because I've had a few from Ireland actually,
Aw.
and, which is great. But as I say, I've had like such success already. It's that whole thing. Like when you see people improve, it helps egg you along. Like even though, as I say, there's a lot going on, there is a lot going on, and then you're like, how can I even keep the cases going while I do this? But it's all part of the experience, and
Mm.
it just pushes me forward more to learn more, to know more, to help more. And that's the beauty of it.
There's a lot to be said for a passionate student homeopath. There's a lot to be said for experience, but there's a lot to be said for a passionate student. My second ever case that I took as a second or third year student was actually one of my fellow naturopathic students who had been struggling with infertility for 2 years. So I took her case. I had my supervisor sit in. It wasn't in person. She came in for her 6-week follow-up and she was pregnant. And it's actually just as a student homeopath, you can actually do some pretty freaking amazing stuff. So I hope that people take advantage of, because you do end up having lower costs because you are still learning. And so it's great for the public who might have been putting off a consult due to the initial costs. So you do get to do it. The student has got a supervisor. So I really hope people jump on this and take advantage of the student clinics, because it's such a great way to, yeah, it's like a win-win.
Yeah, I think even when I see the student clinics over in the UK with CHE, they probably have 20 people discussing the case, all that knowledge. And yeah, sometimes I think they may even work out better. But just seeing those things available for people, because just, I'll just say one more thing about it. So initially, like you said, the cost, like, so the cost of your initial consult is probably the most expensive with homeopathy, but the follow-ups aren't. And the cost of the remedies aren't. And then the other thing I would say is you're not going to a homeopath to be put on a medication for life. You're actually going to a homeopath to bring your vital force back, where you won't need this remedy or another remedy or whatever else. You got to look at it in a more long-term thing. As I say, the information that has to be gathered in that first appointment makes it that little bit more expensive, because there's so much that the homeopath has to find out about you. But then as it goes on, you see them less and there's less cost. And if you do purchase a remedy, that remedy is yours anyway. That lasts forever. It can be used for acutes or whatever else down the line. It's not wasted in any way, but it's not something you're on for. It's that whole concept. We're not here to medicate you, we're here to heal you.
The amount of times I've been in mothers groups on Facebook groups, and you see a mum and she posts in there about her baby's, I don't know, tonsillitis or child's tonsillitis. And then you say to them, just go for a consult. And they're like, oh no, don't have the money. And then a few months, like a few weeks later, oh yeah, my child's got tonsillitis again. Just go to a homeopath. No, I don't have the money. And a couple of weeks later, oh, this child's now got an ear infection. And this kind of goes on and on. And like a year later, they finally come and see you. And they've spent so much money and time and anguish going to doctors, being on antibiotics, destroying the vital force even further, being even more sick. And did you really save money in the end? Just go to the homeopath, get to the root of the things so you don't. And it's not just about the money, it's also the time. Like when your kids are sick and you have to take time off work, nobody's getting sleep because you're up all night. Are you buying supplements that might not be the right ones? And you use like trying to self-prescribe, it's great. And that's what we're aiming for, is to get people to be empowered to self-prescribe. But if there's chronic things going on, that's where a homeopath really shines. And that money really is worth it. I just also often see these same people who don't want to spend money on a consult will then go on holidays here and there in the next place, have their hair and their nails done by the latest this and that gadget that they probably don't need. It all comes down to priorities at the end of the day, and it's worth prioritizing your health. There's really nothing. What do you have if you don't have your health? What's the point of that?
Your health and your children's health, like, because if you
Mm.
prioritize your children's health early, you're not going to have those problems later on. And I'm a testament to it. I have my own story for that. And the thing is, once you start to understand homeopathy more, you become a better self first aid prescriber anyway. But if it's a chronic condition, or if it's a severe acute, get an acute. Obviously, it doesn't cost as much to get an acute appointment. And you'll probably learn a lot by going through an acute appointment and how to deal, how you do, and then understand. Again, as a student, even I'm already, I can't believe how much I've changed in a year and a half. So when somebody tells me their son has a sore throat, and I'm like, yeah, but what type what's the pain? Where
Mm.
is it?
Mm.
Is it this? Is it that? And they're giving bits of questions and there are bits of answers, and they're not giving me the whole picture. And I'm like, I need all this information. It's really important. Like you just need to understand we're not prescribing on a sore throat. We're prescribing on this sore throat, this individual sore throat and how it's presenting to them. So it's not just a sore throat remedy. There's lots of remedies that could be going in here.
Mm.
Um, Obviously, for people to do home prescribe, the combinations can be great for that. But if you've got something a bit more that's not shifting, and you
Mm.
need to learn how to understand the symptoms to actually find the remedy, and that's where it can be really good just to go for an acute appointment to get a feel for what you need to know.
Mm. And yeah, like you said, you learn so much from your homeopath. And I always say to my clients as well, I'm not trying to lock you into a lifetime contract. I'm not like a chiropractor that's going to tell you you have to come to me for like twice a week for the rest of your life, or whatever other modalities do that. I have a lot of clients that see their chiros every week for years and years. And I love chiros. So I'm not saying, and I used to work here with a chiropractor in New Zealand. I work with a chiropractor. I try to align with chiropractors as much as possible because I love them. So there's not a dig at chiropractors. I'm just using it as an example of people that will go to their chiropractor every single week for years on end. But that we don't, that's not what we're trying to do with homeopathy. We're trying to heal you so we don't have to see you again. Like we're trying to cure you. We're trying to get, well, not cure you. We're trying to get your vital force to be strong enough so you can heal yourself. That is, we're trying to work ourselves out of a job. And there's billions of people on the planet that need our help. There's once we've healed you, there's plenty more people that need our help as well. So definitely worth
And
investing that
it's
time.
growing.
It's worth investing that time with your homeopath and building that relationship. And I tell you what, as a homeopath, that is a precious thing. Like I have so many clients that I've been treating for years, and it's the best. And especially my fertility clients, once you get them pregnant and then through the pregnancy, and then you see the little baby, and then the little baby grows, and then the little baby goes to school. It is the coolest thing. And I can't wait to be in this business for another 40 years to be able to treat the children of the children. You know, that when you hear
It's like,
those stories, that's
um,
amazing.
it was a bit like medicine. When my doctor, my GP, when I was a child, I knew the whole family and used to send us to alternative, like we used to go to be sent, might be sent to a quack who had the cure for something, or we might maybe send to the equivalent of a naturopath or a herbal. But they worked with all the other modalities, but also that's lost now. Actually, having that one person know all you and your family and actually know your history, like you're not jumping to different practitioners every time. You have this homeopath knows all your history and can come back to it. And yeah, this relationship. I'm so about it. Like I feel we're missing in life these days, these relationships, and it's so important.
Elaine, I don't want to say bye, but at least I know you're just down the road, a little bit far down the road these days, but still down the road. So thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it and sharing your point of view. I was so excited to have a chat with you today because everyone around you has known that you need to be a homeopath for a long time. We've all been telling you, and I think in your heart you've known it. But like you said, the timing is right when it's right. But I'm just so excited that you're going to be qualifying in the next few months. And I just know you're going to do amazing work because you were already doing amazing work before you even started studying to become a homeopath. So I'm so excited.
Thank you.
And for our listeners, check out Elaine Mac, ELAINEMAC.com. Chat with you soon, my friend.
Thank you.